We are live, I think. Let's see. It's everything loading. And we are live on Facebook. We're live on LinkedIn. We're live everywhere. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Is it hot enough out there for you? Now, the real question is, what's hotter? This air mass or the New York Mets? I would say the New York Mets. Everything good over there, honey?
That's what I'm trying to check. Not on X.
Figures. X is having some
Forecast
issues.
not available.
Uh-oh. X is down. Well, X is not going to give it to you tonight. What can I say? But we're live everywhere else. I think we're good on YouTube.
You did come up that you're on Instagram, so
And we're on Instagram. We're on YouTube. So that works. And I'm seeing everyone is live here on the live chat. So that's good. Okay, so this has been interesting. I just got off of an interview with Fox 5 News talking about the heat and the impacts that OSHA is going to do, or not OSHA, FEMA. FEMA is going to do, where there's talk about releasing funds for heat waves. And it's going to be interesting to see how they pulled this off. Because, look, if you're in Florida, 95 is humidity is what else is new? But in New York, 100-degree, heat index can have some major problems, especially if you have like a lot of homeless and you got to get the cooling centers going, and that can impact a lot of money. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. Should it be done? I would say that when you start getting temperatures in the hundreds, yeah, because you're going to have a lot of strain. Not so much when it's 90, because typically when you have a heat wave, it's 90, okay, 90 for 3 straight days, 90 or higher. And that is uncomfortable, but it's doable. When you start getting into like 95, 97 with a high levels of humidity, then your heat index is 105, 110. That's when you start having problems. So it'll be interesting to see how they work that out. Probably won't see anything done for like a year or so, if anything does get done beyond that point, but we'll see. But it's interesting in terms of the discussions we have been seeing, in terms of whether or not this heat wave is hyped. I can't really speak for other people in how they're presenting this heat wave threat. I've said multiple times in this video, look, the key thing here is the humidity. Drink plenty of water. Heat index anywhere between 95 and 105 through this week, into the weekend. And a lot of that is dependent on your surface temperature. I've repeatedly said, hey, look, Long Island's going to stay cool. So one of the issues that media has is that they're focused on your major metropolitan area. So if you're on the immediate coast or you're in the suburbs, you may not technically be in a heat wave yet because you've been anywhere between 85 and 89 degrees. While Philadelphia for the past 2 days have been in the 90s, and tomorrow will officially make it a heat wave. Other locations were close to that because Philadelphia on Monday was around 89, but some of their surrounding suburbs were around 91, 92. So now they're officially in the heat wave, right? Because you have to meet that 3-day level. But the thing I've been focusing on, and this is something that I started off back with the summer forecast, I said this summer's going to feature a lot of days where it's between 88 and 92 degrees, but it'll feel more like 92 to 95 degrees because of the high levels of humidity. But what's up with all these 100-degree temperatures? Well, let me show you some data that I've been looking at. And I shared this with the premium members. I had a discussion about this, and I wanted to share with you some of the observations and some of the model data that I look at. Now, this is a chart of, here's your current forecast at 12Z this morning. Okay, so this is the 12Z guidance. This is the guidance that they're using right now for like your 5 o'clock news and whatnot and your latest apps and stuff. So as you can see, the current forecast has us peaking, and this is in Philadelphia, on Saturday at 100 degrees. Actually, I'm sorry, 104 on Sunday. Okay. When you take a look at this, is the first thing you should do just say, oh, look, it's going to be in the hundreds? No. Take a look at the overall theme here. When you take a look at 10 days out, or even 5 days out, the temperatures were a good 5 to 10 degrees above the forecast. And the reason why we're seeing this trend, like for example, tomorrow we're expecting to be around 94, but 7 to 10 days ago, the forecast was 104. It's 10 degrees warmer. So what's happening here when we're seeing this? Well, you have to understand how the model guidance is handling this whole evolution. It's taking these ridges that are developing and they're enhancing them. Now, some of that enhancement is model error. Some of that enhancement is trying to adjust for stratospheric influences, like a colder stratosphere. So you're combining these factors, right? And the stronger ridge, what that does is causes a lot of substance, a lot of sinking air. So when you have that substance and sinking air taking shape on your forecast, it tends to enhance your high temperature. So what you're seeing here in this forecast, and here in this forecast, is a situation where the model guidance is thinking everything's going to get mixed out. Thus far, we have not reached that ability to mix out completely in the atmosphere, to maximize the 850 millibar temperatures, which, by the way, have been around 20 degrees Celsius. So in order to support this, we need to see our 850 millibar temperatures 48 hours out, able to push above 25 degrees Celsius at 850 millibars. Because then what happens is that air sinks, and as it sinks, it warms, and that is called adiabatic warming as it's sinking. And as it does that, it sets up your high temperatures. So Met 101, or well, actually Synoptic Meteorology 101. The first thing you guys do if you go to college as a freshman is that you're given 850 millibar temperatures. You're given a skew T chart and a pencil, and you cannot use model guidance. You have to take the model data and learn how to bring it down and use and learn the equations in order to do that and calculate the equations. The reason why you do that as a meteorologist starting out, at least they should, that's how I would teach now, is that it gives you a better insight beyond just what the model guidance. And by doing that process, you understand where model data, yes, even AI, can go wrong. By the way, tonight I'm drinking a Zevia Cherry Cola. It's pretty good. Now, when you see this, as a meteorologist, the first thing I want to do is warn people, hey, look, it's going to be hot and humid. It's the first hot and humid weather pattern of the year. You may think that you're in great shape and nothing bothers you, which most people aren't, but this can really impact you. So I've been telling people, like, look, drink water, stay in cool locations. Be aware of your senior citizens and little kids because they get hit with heat the fastest and with less notice. More people die just from not recognizing just how hot it is. Or worse yet, you get these type of temperatures, it doesn't really cool off at night, and you are in an apartment with no air conditioning. We've dealt with that. Right, honey? Yeah, it was nasty. Okay, because basically what would happen is that we get ice packs and put it on our chests and try to sleep at night because it was so bad. It was just rough. So that is the type of situation you're dealing with. Now, I've noticed some people say that it is overhyped or the most overhyped heat wave ever. Granted, there are some in the media that go a little bit overboard. You know, this isn't the worst heat wave that we ever seen. It's not incredibly unusual to see this in mid-June. Trust me, I've had plenty of tests at Freehold Borough trying to take tests in high school, sweating my clothes off trying to take a final test of the year. So believe me, we've experienced this before, and no one's going to tell me we haven't. But because it's the first one this year, it can have a real impact on you if you're not prepared because you're not used to it. You just got out of temperatures in the 60s and 70s. Your body is acclimated to that, and then you get hit with this heat. And so that is my goal as a we got no, not a home run. That is my goal as a meteorologist to say to you, be prepared. Just like I say with hurricanes. Look, you don't have to run out the door and act like a nut, but be prepared, right? So that's the goal. And I wanted to show you, this is the data I see. This is the data most likely that's going to pop up on the news, okay, by some individuals. And they'll take this data and they'll show it and they'll put a big, huge sun and say, oh my God, heat index, blah, blah, blah. But what you should really do is take a look at the overall trends that you've been seeing in the forecast and say, okay, this hasn't verified very well this far out. What is the error based on that? What is the atmospheric environment? And, instead of maybe 104, let's go with 95 for now. Because 95 with plenty of humidity still is a pretty big deal. And then if we see more support under 48 hours out for these 100-degree temperatures, then we can make the adjustment up and go from there. That's the best way to go about this. Now, while we're dealing with the heat, we also have the tropics. And the tropics has been very, very interesting. We have our first Tropical Storm Alberto. Alberto is not going to be around for very long. It formed around 11 a.m. this morning, and it is steadily moving towards the Mexican coast. This is part of an upper-level tropical Giri that's over basically the Yucatan Peninsula, and it's spawning this low-level circulation. And it's taken a while for it to get to this point. Since about, I'd say, Sunday, we've had a broad area of low pressure. And finally today, we got a little bit more concentrated. And these stronger winds are now more focused around the low-level center. Not the most organized tropical storm. Really, the most significant impacts is going to be all the heavy rainfall that's coming into southern Texas and the Mexican coast. You're talking about some locations getting a foot of rain out of this. But why aren't we seeing rapid intensification? Now, you might have heard of this. You might have heard some people say, hey, look, the water temperatures are very, very warm. And so when storms hit the Gulf of Mexico, they're going to rapidly intensify. Why don't you want to use that as a rule? And here's why. This is a perfect case of why. Warm core lows are very, very, very sensitive. Very sensitive. You get a little bit of dry air, a little bit of disruption in the low-level circulation, and it just doesn't take off. So the potential is always there because of the very warm sea surface temperatures. It's just not a guarantee. What I don't want to see out there are guarantees and declarations of, oh, wow, this is going to be the worst hurricane season ever and all this other nonsense. Because one thing we already learned, like, hey, this La Nina is not looking all that impressive. Remember a couple of months ago, everyone's screaming, well, some people were screaming super La Ninas and all this other stuff, which I still don't understand how they were doing that when there really wasn't any model support for that even then. For the most part, it was a moderate La Nina support. Now we are backing off to a very weak La Nina. The reason why that makes a difference in the hurricane forecast, which I still expect it to be active, is that you have a little bit more shear because the subtropical jet stream just doesn't fall apart. But in this scenario, you had a perfect setup in terms of potential development. You had plenty of warm water, but it took too long for the low-level circulation to organize, and now it is interacting with the Mexican coast and other factors. So, as a result, it's going to be a lot of heavy rain. It's not going to be the worst storm in the world, though. Most likely a lot of mudslides and whatnot. Now, talking about our pattern overall. Now, the rest of the tropical Atlantic is pretty quiet. We have a few weak disturbances, but they got maybe a 20% chance. We'll wait until we get a little bit more more support for them and maybe it's an actual low-level circulation. But I wanted to go over to the sea surface temperatures here because clearly we have a very weak east-based La Nina. But the driving pattern here is what's happening with the negative PDO and the positive AMO. Now, the negative PDO, the reason why this is an important feature is that this gives me more confidence that we're going to see an established weak La Nina with more of an east-based tilt to it. So your coldest sea surface temperatures are out here. Nino 3.4 gradually gets towards a La Nina state. Nino 4 out here remains warm. Why is that important? Well, all your convection is going to be out here. It also means that your subtropical jet stream is going to be weaker, but still present. So these factors are very important in the seasonal forecast for the summer, fall, and yes, when we get to winter, it will be important. So while that's all taking place, you have what's going on in the Atlantic with cool sea surface temperatures off the southeast coast. Look at this. It almost looks like a circulation. See, what's happening here is that you have cooler waters here, so you're able to build up heights. This strongly supports, this is a strong signal for what we call a Bermuda high. And this is why we've been talking about the potential for a humid summer here. So this configuration leads to a trough generally around the Pacific Northwest, sometimes getting down towards California, and a broad ridge over the eastern two-thirds of the United States, and a nice sustained ridge over the western Atlantic, thus setting up your 500 millibar pattern. I mean, this is basically textbook of a negative PDO, positive AMO configuration. So it's not really that much of a surprise that we're seeing what we're seeing. Now, the reason why model guidance a couple of days ago were just going off the hook with temperatures in the hundreds is that this ridge was being forecasted to push over 600 decameters, which would be an incredibly strong ridge for this time of year, which would explain the strong subsidence, which would explain the enhanced temperatures, even though 850 millibar temperatures were only around 20, 21 degrees Celsius. That didn't happen. So let's look at what the model guidance does later. Starts to break it down. And you see a trough rebuilding and a ridge. It's starting to lose the extreme anomalies. So we're seeing an adjustment in the model guidance. The model guidance is based on the observations that are coming in, is having an adjustment in the way that is displaying these high temperatures. But you're still seeing some spikes because of the nature of this ridge and what it's trying to do in terms of mixing. While that's happening, we also see this cold front coming in on Monday. I'm very concerned about this cold front on Monday. We'll talk about this more in a few minutes, as this looks like it has the potential of producing some nasty severe weather on Monday afternoon and evening. I'm a bit concerned about that. But you can see the overall pattern here continuing. This is the summer, ladies and gentlemen. Be prepared. 88 to 92 is going to be your average. Upper 60s to mid 70s are going to be your lows. Plenty of humidity. It's going to be rough out there. And it's going to be perpetual. Now, does that mean we're going to have a heat wave all through the summer? No. We're going to have a lot of days where we're going to be in the upper 80s, but it's just going to be muggy out. So this first heat wave, and for some locations as of today, it is an official heat wave, especially in some of your Philadelphia suburbs and around western New Jersey. We're seeing a couple spots. It's not widespread, though. It's not where every location is above the 90s. It just isn't that type of air mass yet. We're moving in that direction where I think that by the end of the week, most locations will be in the heat wave designation. But again, it's not the worst heat wave that we've ever seen. Unfortunately, though, this summer, Well, it's going to be a good summer for weight loss because you're going to be sweating a lot, and drinking a lot of water, hopefully, right? So when we take a look at our current observations right now, it's 8:20 p.m. and it is still 80 in the mid 80s in eastern Pennsylvania, the Delaware River Valley. As you head towards the coast, it's in the mid to upper 70s. If you want to stay cool for this entire period, go to Long Island. It's going to stay relatively cool throughout this upcoming week, and that's generally going to be the theme going into the summer. Why? Because you get a persistent Bermuda high setting up this summer, you're going to have a lot of winds coming off the Atlantic Ocean. So your coolest locations will be right on the immediate Jersey Shore and the south side of Long Island and probably the south side of the Connecticut coast here, where you're going to be the coolest this summer. That's going to be nature's air conditioner, so to speak. And part of this weather pattern is, of course, the ring of fire and the thunderstorms around this ridge. Right now, they're pretty much staying to the north of us. Yesterday, we had a couple thunderstorms here sitting over northeastern Pennsylvania. Here's the concern with this weather pattern and thunderstorms. The steering currents and the mid-level winds are incredibly weak. So you get a thunderstorm form over your location. It's an isolated thunderstorm, so not everyone will see it. But you, under that thunderstorm, could easily end up with a half an inch or inch and a half of rain without much in the way of anything moving until the thunderstorm basically rains itself out. So right now, I'm not too terribly concerned about severe thunderstorms in this pattern until we get to Monday. But I am concerned about the potential for localized urban flooding with some of these storms because they develop and they just sit there and they just drop plenty of water, just like what we're seeing up here right now. So I wanted to show the visible satellite picture. I apologize for the little glitch here from NOAA, but basically you can see all the moisture in the atmosphere. You can see that haze, that's not smoke, that's water vapor. Just the amount of water that's hanging around the atmosphere just kind of gives you a good idea of the humidity in the atmosphere. I wanted to show this data earlier, but let me just go over this real fast right now. This is the SOI data. We were talking about La Nina. Right now, the tropical forcing from La Nina or El Nino, whatever you want to focus on, is pretty much non-existent, which is why the PDO is my primary forcing mechanism. Back to, let me pull up the latest upper level winds. You can see our ridge is in place here, sustained. Not much in the way of activity going on other than the heat and humidity. And you can see where all of the moisture is coming from, right from the Gulf of Mexico, right into our neck of the woods. And the water vapor shows that very nicely with all the deep moisture. And you can literally see the ridge establish itself. Now, during this time of year, what ends up happening is that you get a broad ridge at 500 millibars, and then under the ridge, you start to get these little short waves, these little tropical waves that undercut the ridge. And this is how you can get some tropical development. So this is one of the features that the National Weather Service and the Hurricane Center is watching very carefully to see if we have any type of development. It could spawn a weak subtropical or tropical low while approaching the Bahamas and heading towards the southeast coast, and then gets kicked right back out into the Atlantic. Now let's talk about this cold front setting up here for Monday. You have a pretty vigorous trough diving in on Monday afternoon. And with that trough, you have plenty of lifting with it, and you have very strong cold air transport for this time of year driving in. Add in the moisture, pretty high precipitable water values already in place. That's going to lead to the potential for some of these thunderstorms capable of very heavy downpours, frequent lightning, hail, downburst wind gusts over 50 miles per hour. And I would not be surprised if we get spawn a tornado or two on Monday. The reason why I say that is that with this trough coming in and this trough axis, the way it's coming in, with a slight positive tilt, and you have southerly winds at the surface, That's going to lead to an increased potential for basically directional wind shear. As you go up in the atmosphere, you have more of a cyclonic tilt to your upper level winds. And so now you have directional shear, you have speed shear associated with the polar jet stream diving in. It certainly has my attention on Monday afternoon, evening for some nasty storms. So I'm a bit concerned about that. There's also a frontal boundary to the north of us. It's going to be wavering around New England Friday and Saturday. Looks like some scattered showers. Could be a few thunderstorms that produce some very heavy downpours. This would be a scenario where the thunderstorms develop, let's say, around the Mohawk River Valley through Albany and into Massachusetts, and then press their way down through the Ohio River Valley, Connecticut, and into the New York City metro. I don't foresee this being an issue for Philadelphia, but certainly it's going to be a bit stormy around the New York City metro on north. Could even push into central New Jersey. We'll keep an eye on that. And that's essentially what's being shown here over the next couple of days. The stationary boundary, you have a modified polar air up here around Quebec, is trying to push south. Doesn't really have a lot of support, but it certainly could produce a few showers and a thunderstorm or two. So certainly interesting potential in that respect. That is what I have for tonight. And so now I am going to answer all of your questions. And it looks like we have some pretty good questions coming in from Card. And we have a little bit of activity going on YouTube. So we'll start off with the premium chat first. And after I get done with all the premium information and all the questions, then I will go to social media and see what they have there. So let's see here. The dew point is down to 58 in Central Park, and it feels amazing out. Why the sudden drop in the dew point? Let's take a look at the observations. Good thing I kept that up. Let's see. Where is it? Here we are. And let's zoom in. I see it. Okay. So let me flip here. Okay. So it looks like you're getting a little bit of a northeasterly shot coming in basically from your northeast, and that is what's driving a little bit drier air. It looks like it's being drawn from this area right here. It's kind of getting funneled in. You have your southerly winds coming in towards Teterboro. Temperature, the dew points are in the mid 50s there. So you have this dense pocket. It looks like it's coming right down the Hudson River, right into Manhattan. Don't expect that to last very long. Temperatures, let's see, dew points are already in the 60s here, still in the 60s here on Long Island. Expect that to get worked up. Let's see here. Seems like there are pretty much going to be three kinds of days this summer. Disgusting, more disgusting, and really disgusting. Well, yeah, it seems like that. Saw that Mount St. Helens is showing signs of life. Yeah, I saw that too. We'll see if anything comes of it. Shocked the 18Z GFS did not spin up a hurricane moving towards the Bahamas. Maybe it's improving. I know they're working on it. Notice that even into the western suburbs of New York City, just outside I-95 corridor, that a bit of a breeze off the coast has developed this afternoon, which has cooled the air temperature off a bit. The cold water in the northwest Atlantic towards the coast that is enhancing the Atlantic high, also helping to generate the sea breeze? No, the sea breeze is more of a mesoscale factor. The cool water that is basically off of about North Carolina, that is helping to build our ridge, okay, because of the cooler, denser air under the ridge. But what you're experiencing right along the coast here, that is just a sea breeze effect. And one that can, at times in this type of air mass, can be very powerful. Especially with the winds being so light, you could really get things rolling. Then there's the guy in Pennsylvania who sues people for disagreeing. Yeah, there is that guy. What are you going to do? Yeah, unfortunately, he's talking about Dr. Mann. Let's just say that he has his opinion, and I stay away from him. I live that because sometimes you deal with someone who is so insecure that they need to attack everyone. It tells me everything I need to know about the individual. So, because when someone questions my forecast, I look for like, what are you trying to question, and see maybe I made a mistake somewhere. But to be fair, on the other side, I've come across people when dealing with climate that have called me everything from a communist to a fascist. And I'm like, I am two extremes at the same time. Maybe it's just that I don't need to label people. Like, what is your idea? Let's flesh it out. Let's talk about it, and then let's have solutions, and talk like human beings. God forbid. The polar and subtropical jet streams so far to the north and east they are phasing in northern Canada south of Greenland. Yeah, absolutely they are. During the summer months, this typically happens quite a bit, especially when you're dealing with this type of weather pattern. It's not unusual to see that happening. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the fall months. They tell us some clues maybe for the winter, but I don't want to go there just yet. But it's certainly interesting to see the alignment and syncing between the polar and subtropical jet streams so far. Will tropical convection along the date line, which tends to support troughs and eaves, result in a PDO-AMO couplet being a bit less than it would be otherwise as far as strengthening of the western Atlantic ridge by enabling it to be knocked down on occasion? Usually convection around the date line becomes more influential in the cold seasons because it has more of a direct impact on your polar jet stream. In the summer, while convection is important in terms of understanding the evolution of the subtropical jet stream and the amount of short waves that are involved in that jet stream, what I'm more interested in the summer is whether or not that convection starts to spawn off more tropical low pressure systems in the western Pacific. In that case, then if you get storms turning up the coast of Japan and heading towards, let's say, the Aleutian Islands, that would have more of a direct impact in the summer pattern. I remember summers we had 3 to 5 days in a row at or over 100. Sure, and we'll have them again. This is the fact that we're seeing hot temperatures in June. It's not incredibly unusual. This isn't something that is. I think this is what happened. There were some people that took if we had 100-degree temperatures widespread, like what the European was showing a couple of days ago, yeah, it would have been a big deal this early into June in New England. Okay? Northern Mid-Atlantic, it's unusual, but it's not unprecedented. Southeast, it's like, what? It's summer, you know? So the discussion matters on where you're talking, right? In Boston, it's a big deal. They wouldn't be ready for it. In New York, it's a pain in the neck, but not the end of the world. Richmond, Virginia, summer. So it kind of depends on where you're at when you're discussing this. Looked at the SPC site at 815 millibars. There are spots the winds are so weak they aren't even wind direction hours. Yeah, there's a lot of calm winds out there, which is a concern with these thunderstorms because if they form over your location, guess what? You're going to be dealing with rain for about 2-3 hours until it collapses. 700 millibars still has decent amount of cold air available and dry air. So if you get that convection to develop, you get that cumulus able to grow, they can grow into pretty strong thunderstorms and produce quite a bit of rainfall. see here. And Pat is going on a cruise in October. Well, I have to worry about hurricanes. I don't go to cruises in general. There's a good, what's it called? Bill Burr promo on this. It was kind of hilarious. But I would not advise doing cruises in the middle of hurricane season anywhere at all. These captains appear to like to go into the storms. At least I've heard way too many of those stories. There's at least 3 of them every year now, where like some captain goes right into the hurricane. Like, it's lightning out there. Like, go away from the lightning. Like, go the other direction. Go away. So I would not advise going and going on a cruise during hurricane season. That's just me. I'd be too paranoid. Let's see what we got in social media land. Can you explain why there's a hail threat on Monday? Okay, so you have plenty of moisture. You have strong frontogenesis. So you have a lot of lifting going on, and there's potential for vertical wind shear. So the vertical wind shear moves in cyclonic motion. You have plenty of deep moisture, so you're lifting moisture and into a colder environment, which picks up ice. There's support there for strong updraft because of the nature of the cold front. So when you combine these factors, it opens up the potential for hail in those storms, which is typical of severe thunderstorms. Do I expect derechos to happen this summer? I think it's an absolute threat. You're getting this ridge developing in the Western Atlantic, and while that's occurring, you're having shortwaves dropping through the eastern Great Lakes. That type of setup, if the ridge aligns just right, certainly supports the potential for those type of storms. I'm not guaranteeing it, but certainly a better potential than not. Let's see. Do we have any questions on anywhere else? Oh, maybe we do. Let's see here. If a super La Nina ever comes around, that means hotter summer and very active hurricane. Yeah, but if that was going to happen, it would have shown signs of it already. So I'm not really worried about that. And super La Nina doesn't always mean super hot summer. It kind of depends on the ridge dynamics. If you got a super La Nina that's more towards, let's say, Hawaii, then it's more likely to set up that ridge more in the plains and in the Mississippi River Valley, and we get more of a northwesterly flow, and it could get pretty nasty in the Tennessee River Valley and the Mississippi River Valley. As far as hurricanes, I mean, yeah, you'd have a better chance of it being more active. Will those thunderstorms Monday afternoon and night, will it be lightning, downpours, gusty winds, and ruled out tornadoes? I expect the potential for severe thunderstorms, including the potential for tornadoes. I'm not promising it. I'm just saying that based on what we're seeing right now in the forecast, the potential's there. The setup is there for that type of storm outlook. Let's see, what else do we have here? I mean, again, like as far as the cruise question, going back to Pat, I'm my concern is that if you're going anywhere in the Caribbean, you're going to be at serious threat. You're going in the heart of hurricane season. Okay? My brother asked me about this once. I told him go in November, and he got stuck with a storm passing to his north. So, if you're going down towards the southern part of the Caribbean, you have a better chance of missing it. If you're going around like the Bahamas and Puerto Rico, hey, good luck. But especially this year, I would be concerned about your safety, to be honest with you. And talking about storms, let's see if we have any new data on our tropical system here. I'm going to refresh some data and see if I can pull that up. Yeah, let's see here. I'll use mesoscale. We'll try to pull up the mesoscale data and see if we get some more information. The satellites recently, maybe it's just me, I don't know, but it's been taking longer to load, unfortunately. Just my luck. But overall, again, this tropical system has not been all that impressive. It really didn't get named until we started to see the stronger winds get closer to the low level circulation, and that was enough to call it a warm core low pressure system. Taking a look at the latest data so far, not really anything out yet. Let's see if we have any update. We have a 7 p.m. update. Winds are still 40 miles per hour. It's moving pretty steadily to the west-southwest at 9 miles per hour. So Alberto will probably be making landfall roughly around 2 a.m. or so. And when it does, that's pretty much it. And you get some heavier rainfall, and that is about it. And it looks like I got all the questions answered, and we covered all the topics for tonight. So I'm going to cut it off a little short because my throat is starting to hurt. So I do apologize. But and something weird just happened on the website. So we're back on that. So I think we're going to call it a night for tonight. I want to thank everyone for joining. We went over a lot of topics, got a lot of good questions. And I'm going to make sure that my voice doesn't go away for the videos tomorrow. So with that being said, have a wonderful night. And as always, stay safe out there.